Welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at a position that at first glance seems like a simple, perhaps even boring endgame. But look closer. This is exactly the kind of position where club players lose their minds and grandmasters find the art. We have white with a queen on f2, a king on e1. Black has two rooks, one on h7, one on h5, and a king on h6. It is white to move. If you are a beginner, you look at this and see a sea of pieces. If you are an expert, you see the tension. The board is screaming for a solution. Let's start with the evaluation. White has a queen. Black has two rooks. Materially, two rooks are usually slightly better than a queen, but the safety of the king is the only metric that matters here. Look at the black king on h6. It is completely boxed in by its own rooks on h7 and h5. This is the definition of a cramped king. In chess, mobility is everything, and right now the black king has 0 squares. This is a critical tactical motif. We call this suffocation. Now, what is the job of the queen? The queen on f2 is currently doing nothing. It is sitting on a passive square. But the moment we move it to the f6 square, something magical happens. Let's look at the geometry. If white plays qf6, the queen attacks the h6 square directly. But wait, can the king take? No, because the queen is protected by the geometry of the board and the specific arrangement of the black pieces. Can the rooks intervene? No. The rooks are trapped. They are effectively spectators in their own game. This is what we call a smothered position without the traditional knight involvement. You see, when a king is restricted by its own pieces, even a single queen can deliver a devastating blow. Think about the psychological impact here. Black thinks, I have two rooks, I am safe, I am solid. That is the arrogance that leads to a resignation. White plays qf6 and suddenly the game is over. The king is in check, it cannot move to g5, it cannot move to g6, it cannot move to h5, and it cannot move to h7. It is checkmate. Why is this beautiful? Because it utilizes the interplay of pieces. The black rooks, meant to defend, have become the bars of a cage. This is a lesson in piece coordination. Always, and I mean always, check your opponent's king safety before you look at material. If you had skipped looking at the king's confinement, you might have moved your queen to a random square like e3 or g3, wasting a tempo and allowing black to reorganize. In master-level chess, tempo is the currency. By playing qf6, white spends that currency to buy the entire game. Let's talk about the structural weakness. The weakness isn't a pawn hole or a backward pawn. It's the proximity of the black pieces to their own king. When your pieces are too close, they restrict your own movement. This is a common error in the endgame. Beginners love to keep their pieces around their king for protection, but they forget that a protected king is only safe if it has an escape square. Without an escape, you have built a prison. As we analyze this one-move finish, I want you to visualize the board. If that queen were not on f2, what would the position be? A draw. The entire outcome of the game rests on the ability of the queen to reach f6. This is a masterclass in direct tactical vision. You need to see the end before you make the move. Most players move then look, grandmasters look then move. In this position, the calculation is absolute. There is no counterplay for black. There is no defensive resource. It is a forced mate. This is a prime example of the power of the queen. A queen is a multi-purpose tool, but its most dangerous function is the sniper ability. It can travel across the board, penetrate the enemy lines, and land a fatal blow. Now let's consider the alternative. What if white played qg3? Black would respond with a rook move, perhaps rf5 or rh5, and now the queen has to deal with the pressure. White would lose the initiative. Always prioritize the move that ends the game. If you see mate, take the mate. Do not complicate the game when the solution is elegant and direct. The simplicity of this mate is what makes it so viral. It captures the essence of chess. Finding the one move that changes everything. As you study this, think about your own games. How many times have you had an opponent who was jammed up like this? You had the pieces, you had the advantage, but you didn't see the specific square to land the queen on. Chess is a game of patterns. You are building a library of these patterns in your brain. Once you see a caged king pattern once, you will see it 1,000 times. Every time you see a king trapped by its own pieces, your brain will immediately highlight the squares around that king. That is how you become a master. You stop looking at the board as 64 squares and start looking at it as a set of threats and opportunities. This position is a perfect isolated example of that. We have analyzed the king's position, the piece placement, the tactical constraint, and the decisive blow. It's a complete package. Remember, chess is not just about moving pieces. It's about controlling the tension. When you move to qf6, you are not just checking the king. You are asserting dominance over the entire board. The game is over, the king has fallen, and white takes the victory. It is a clean surgical finish. That is how you play the endgame. Study this, memorize the pattern, and bring it to your next game. You will be surprised how often your opponents create these little prisons for themselves. Keep practicing, keep analyzing, and I will see you in the next one.